Saving your work is a really important part of coding. Quite often you'll add an extra line of code, you'll compile it, and all of a sudden it'll crash and it becomes really difficult to go back to where your code was working before. That's why we use Git, which is a way of controlling the source code and version control, and I'll show you a couple of ways that you can make sure you've always got a backup. When you create a new project, you'll notice that you'll see the little create Git is automatically selected. That basically allows you to create a whole lot of saved parts of your project. So when you open up your project, you look at the storyboard, little menu bar saying source control at the top allows you to commit changes and go back to those changes if you do make an error along the way. So we'll just run through how you do that and what elements have to happen. So we've got our Xcode project. We want to save a backup. If we go to source control and then click commit, you'll see that there's nothing in the left hand side, and even if we type here, we don't get the option to commit. That's because we haven't done anything with our file. You need to start working on your project before you can commit. So if we add in a button, let's go to the right menu bar, add in a button, we can now go up to source control, click commit, and you'll see there are files in that left hand column. You want to click the little tick box to select the files that you have and then give it a name. It's really important that you choose an appropriate name that's easy to recall what you've changed. Hit commit and that will save it into the repository. There may be a chance that your commit doesn't work and you get this error message popping up each time you try to click commit. If you do get this error popping up, it's telling you exactly what you need to do. What you need to do is copy these lines here into the terminal. So go to the little the magnifying glass, type in terminal, hit return, and then you want to copy those lines and paste them in exactly. Just got those saved in a Word document. So just copy them straight from the error into the terminal. Now it's worth changing your username or user email to your own and then doing it one line at a time, because if you do it twice it'll automatically do it. So what you want to do is just pick the first line, stick it in the terminal, change your username, your email to whatever it wants to be, then hit return, then type in exactly that line but change it to your name and then hit return, and that will set up your Git repository so you can save your work. So if it doesn't work the first time you do get this error message, type the first line in with your own email, hit return, then type the second line in with your own name, hit return into the terminal. And then when you run it, it should work fine. So now we've made our first commit, let's add a few changes to our view controller. We'll add a button and a menu. Do another commit. Again, type in really clear instructions on what you've done. So now added 2 buttons and a menu. So when we look back, we know exactly what we've done. Click the little files you want to commit and hit commit. Then when we want to access them, this little box on the far right allows us to do it. Let's add another commit though before we analyze it. Add a view controller with an image, a few more differences. Let's stick a couple of buttons in between. We'll do a commit. We'll again select our file. Let's call this one, we've added a second view controller. Now we're going to do another commit where we link the 2 view controllers. So we'll add our button with our control drag and we'll create segues between our 2 view controllers. So again, there's another element that we can run a commit to. Give it a name. This time we've added the buttons and the links. Again, you must check that little checkbox there and then hit commit. Now we can click up on the top left and we see this little folder called Master. Whatever your app is called, ours is called Try, so Master, and they're all our commits. We can click on any of those commits and reload them. To do this, we right click the commit we want to load and we say check out, and this will load that particular commit. It'll give us a warning, so you do want to do this. Then when we click the left hand side, we can load our our storyboard, and you'll see it's gone back to our original commit. We can change that, but when you click on yours, you'll notice that there's now only 2. They're the ones that were committed before the screen that we're looking at now. To get the full list, we need to open our branches, which you'll see as a column just over on the left hand side, and there are all our commits. We can then check out one of the most recent ones if we wish. But just remember that if you commit, you'll only see those first 2 unless you click that master loop. Then we can add anyone. Again, we right click, check out, and then we can go back to our storyboard and we should see that we're back to where we were with our various commits. Now there's a few other strange issues with committing, that when you select one to commit, so we go to our commit, right click, go check out, sometimes it'll come up with you haven't committed any changes. Even when you haven't done anything, like we hadn't, we just opened the storyboard to have a look at it, it considers that a change. So you either have to commit that change or discard all changes. Because we haven't done anything useful, we're going to discard all changes. And once it's done that, you'll see there are no letters on those left-hand side, and we can check out any commit we wish then. So that's just a little bit of a trick that if you do open a commit and then want to open another commit straight away, sometimes it'll ask you to discard changes. But it's a useful warning to make sure you don't commit and lose work that you've actually done. The best way to use this is whenever you add a feature and compile it and it works the way you want, add another commit. That way you know it's running and it actually works well. But make sure those names and titles when you commit make sense, because you'll end up with a very long list of commits and you want to be able to quickly scroll through and see what each commit did and which one you want to go to. So that becomes a really important feature of source control. Another useful way to back up is to actually go and quit out of Xcode and go to your folder which you saved your files in. Ours was just called Try. So if you go to the desktop, which is where ours is saved, inside that folder are all the Xcode folders. If you right click that folder and hit compress, it will make a zip file of all of those. Make sure you do choose the major folder rather than just the Xcode project, because that won't have all the files. But that allows you to keep a copy of everything you've created up to that point. My advice is use both Git and save duplicates or compressed files. Usually best to save them on a cloud or some other folder than the one you're currently working on is sitting, because it can get a bit confusing when you've got multiple folders for the same project. So back up with Git, but also back up by just right-clicking and compressing the whole project. That way you'll be able to go back if anything goes wrong.